Martinsville Speedway this Sunday. The round of 8 comes to an end. I'm now joined by the one and only Dale Tanhart. Dale, it's great to see you. 8 will become 4 at the end of 500 laps on Sunday, and this could look very different than recent Martinsville Speedway races. NASCAR is bringing the option tire from Richmond, that softer tire. It will be on the right side of the car. The left sides will be somehow even softer than that. So Goodyear getting really experimental ahead of an important playoff race. Do you expect to see anything radically different this time around, or is this going to be another underwhelming tire discussion?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me back. Happy Halloween. I got to show the drip, the Rusty Wallace, Freddy Krueger look. I wear this shirt one time a year. It's actually cracking really, really badly, only for wearing one time. So this is the day we got to wear it.
It adds to
the
the effect.
Knives. I got the knives too, but they're actually, I think I left them at my parents' house. My little brother needed to borrow them for some shenanigans. But
wow,
talking about Martinsville, I hope it's a spooky type of weekend when it comes to tire wear. And Eric, it seems like every time we have this conversation leading up to a new week where we have a new story about tires, altered practice sessions, it just becomes a huge nothing burger. And obviously we're all hopeful that it is the exact opposite this weekend. The only time it wasn't a nothing burger is when it was by complete accident at Bristol this spring. So I'm optimistic, or I'm hopeful, but my heart says yes, my brain says no.
Yeah, even if the on-track racing doesn't look a whole lot different, we know this is a new variable for the crew chiefs, for the drivers to manage. How do you feel about NASCAR and Goodyear introducing potentially a radical change during such a pivotal late season race? Like, of all races to test this out, really, Martinsville, second to last race of the year? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm actually okay with it because at the end of the day, the system is the system. And I think the playoff system, if people have a complaint about this situation, I think you got to blame the playoff system, because at the end of the day, we're all still on the same playing field. Everybody gets the same amount of practice. Everybody gets the opportunity to run as many laps as they want, as they can, and have the ability to find a way to adapt. So I'm okay with it because at the end of the day, it's a desperate situation with the short track package. The short track program entirely needs enhancement, whether it's at the beginning of the year, at the end of the year. We need constant change to find the balance of good racing like we had at the end of the Gen 6 era. So I know the playoff situation makes it somewhat controversial. I'm cool with it and just hopeful that it will lead to better racing this weekend and in the future.
And I'll add on to that, this fall Martinsville race is historically been one of the most entertaining every single year. We've seen great finishes like Truex versus Logano in 2018. It's desperation mode, like you said, for the short track package. This is a race that needs to be good. So any radical change that can potentially be done should be explored. Well, hopefully Goodyear brought something really interesting this weekend. Can't wait to see how it races. Let's talk about some specific drivers and teams. Let's take a look at the point situation. Only 2 drivers have locked into Phoenix, Joey Logano and most recently Tyler Reddick. Hendrick Motorsports is in a very interesting position. Kyle Larson was the top seed coming into these playoffs, but a couple of uncharacteristically bad weekends have them below the cut line. William Byron is just barely hanging on to the 4th position. Chase Elliott's in must-win territory. Dale, is there a real chance here that Hendrick Motorsports could get completely shut out of the championship for the first time since, I think, 2019?
They did run 1, 2, 3 at Martinsville earlier this spring. I don't think that will happen again. I like the juju around the whole Hendrick deal that they had. I'm very superstitious. Definitely believe that has some type of impact. But when you look at the fall races versus the spring races in the Gen 7 era, Hendrick has not been as good. And maybe it's not as much as they haven't been as good, but maybe the other teams they get better, right? Like Team Penske in particular. Christopher Bell had an amazing heroic win here fall of 2022. So when I look at the playoff situation, the guy that I'm the most nervous about is William Byron. I think a Hendrick guy is going to get in. I think it's going to happen. I think the program is just too good to not get one of these 3 drivers in the championship 4.
Yeah, and to your point, again, they finished 1, 2, 3 here in the spring. Very different tire combination, but as celebratory as that day was with the 100+ Hendrick employees camped out in turn 2, boy, the fall race could be a completely different mood if something goes wrong and Hendrick Motorsports does in fact miss out on the championship four. You mentioned Christopher Bell's heroic run here in 2022. We've seen a couple of walk-off winners in this race in recent years. Even behind you there, Ross Chastain wasn't a walk-off win, but was a clutch desperation Hail Melon move on the final lap to get in. Bell in 2022, last year it was Ryan Blaney who entered this race below the cut line, was able to win his way in. So if we look at the four drivers currently below the cut line, we just mentioned Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott, but also Ryan Blaney and Denny Hamlin. Who do you feel of that group of four is most likely to win their way in on Sunday?
Man, it's tough because I'd like to see the practice session on who's fast, who unloads with speed, and who is able to adapt. But man, I just have a feeling about Denny Hamlin. I tell you what, with Chris Gabehart on the box, these guys are very good at adapting, and they've been very good in these circumstances, whether or not we have tire wear or we don't have tire wear at these short tracks. Unless it's a rain situation like we had at New Hampshire, Denny Hamlin has been great in every scenario you could think of. Now, it's been a while since he's won at Martinsville, but I kind of believe in the poetic justice of everything going on with the lawsuit. Tyler Reddick wins his way in last week. It'd be pretty poetic if Denny Hamlin did as well. I know we got a lot of Denny haters out there, but you can't deny that it would be some type of poetic justice for Denny and his own driver to both make the Final Four and have a shot at the championship in the midst of this chaos that is the lawsuit with 2311 and Front Row against NASCAR. So if I had to pick one, I think it'd be Denny Hamlin. I think the short track program with Joe Gibbs Racing, in particular with the 11, has been so good in the Gen 7 era that with an enhanced practice session, if you will, I think it gives Chris Gabehart a big-time advantage heading into Sunday.
Yeah, I like that Denny Hamlin pick. Softer tires could wear out more. He was really good at Bristol in the spring and Richmond in the spring, two high tire wear races. So I like that Hamlin pick. I lean towards Ryan Blaney personally. I know he did it last year. Can he do it back-to-back years? That would be extremely clutch, but he was close to winning at Homestead, and we know that Team Penske is good at these short, flat ovals. So watch out for Blaney, Hamlin, and obviously Kyle Larson. You can't count Kyle Larson out. I want to talk about...
You can make a case for anybody. It's really, really difficult this weekend.
I'm looking forward to it because we can spend all this time talking about the four guys below the cut line, but even the two guys above the cut line who haven't locked in, they're not safe. Like Christopher Bell plus 29, William Byron plus 7 have quietly put together extremely consistent playoff runs, but they haven't won a race since like the early summer, I think, is the last time Christopher Bell was at New Hampshire. Was that the last time he won a race? And Byron was like April, I think. So they've been extremely consistent, but they're not winning. Could that come back to bite them this weekend? Do you think they need to go into this race thinking win, or would a top 5 day for Bell or Byron potentially be enough?
Yeah, for Christopher Bell, certainly. I feel like with Adam Stevens on the box, you got to think about the success he's had in these type of moments with Kyle Busch, especially at Martinsville towards the mid-end Gen 6 era. I think Christopher Bell with a 29-point advantage, I believe, they can run top 10, top 15, and be fine. Now, William Byron, my prediction is he will not make the championship four. They have been too inconsistent in the short tracks since the beginning of the Gen 7 era. And if you had a graph of what his finishes look like on short tracks, it looks something like this. I mean, I'm sure Auto Racing Analytics could have something like that. But at the end of the day, they are just too inconsistent. And when you look at guys behind them like Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott's been awesome at Martinsville, and Kyle Larson has improved so much on short tracks in 2023 and 2024. And you talk about Ryan Blaney. I mean, Penske just has the clutch gene that Jimmy Johnson had back in the Chase days with Chad Knaus. So I think William Byron is in a very dangerous spot. And just to add on to that, I talk about Adam Stevens and Chris Gabehart, the experienced crew chiefs, even Cliff Daniels, Alan Gustafson. They've been in positions like this over the last decade. I'm concerned with the inexperience or the youth of that team relative to the experience of these other guys with Rudy Fugle on the box. So I think that's an important element when you consider the tire situation, you consider the practice session. I feel like they are so vulnerable. They have to think win. I think if you're talking about William Byron.
Yeah, I think you're right about Byron. Bell, I think top 15 is risky considering stage points, but I think if he runs top 10, he should be good to go. What concerns me about Christopher Bell, though, when I looked this up, he only has one career top 5 at Martinsville. It was that win 2 years ago to lock into the championship 4. So a little feast or famine there. We need that consistent Christopher Bell to keep showing up this weekend to get to Phoenix. Man, good stuff, Dale. Talking to you now has me even more excited for this weekend just because all 6 remaining playoff drivers could win or could falter. It's all or nothing. It's going to be fun to watch. Really appreciate you being on the show, Dale. Where can folks find you on social media at the end of this season?
At Dale Tanhart, everywhere, Twitter, Instagram. I keep saying Twitter. I'm probably going to keep saying Twitter, even though it's X now, but X, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I'll have a betting program, Dale Center, out on Friday, a little Halloween edition. So, it's pretty uniform everywhere. And yeah, like you, I just talking about it more and more, getting more excited ahead of the weekend. And it's a triple header too. We got trucks and Xfinity, and then the Cup race, which is always something exciting leading into Phoenix for the championship next weekend. So yeah, going to be a great time, I hope, and happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween to you as well. Looked good out there, Groovy Hollow Tuesday night. Looked real fast out there, so appreciate you racing in that as well.
Yeah, burned the right front off and did not do well. But yeah, okay. Had a great time there too. Love the Halloween energy.
Yeah, it's always been fun. Good to talk to you, Dale. We'll see you again soon. Enjoy Martinsville.
You too.